Today I'm going to be making mommy and me dresses for me and my daughter for her first birthday party. I'm using the Betty dress and the Lois Wrap Onesie as my starting point, and I'm adjusting them to be a little bit different for these special dresses. For the Betty dress, I'm adding pockets. If you're interested on how to add pockets to any garment, I'll be sharing that today. And then I'm also sharing a new to me technique, which is smocking. So my mom made my dresses smocking growing up, so I'm going to share that today on my experience on smocking for the first time. And these were just some fun dresses to make, and I'm excited to share them with you. So I'm starting with the Betty pattern, and this is a pattern that you can find on my website. And I'm just cutting it out of this gingham fabric that I found at Hobby Lobby. It's 100% cotton, and I really like the end result of it and how it flows really well. So instead of just doing the regular pattern, I'm actually adding pockets to this dress, and that's actually a very simple process. And so I'm going to walk you through how to add pockets to any garment. First, you want to measure where you want your pockets to go, and then I'm going to cut out this little pocket bag pattern, and you can just trace around your hand if you don't have a pattern like this, and you're going to cut it out 4 times, so you want 4 of the same shape. So I actually decided to go back and add pockets, so I'm going to seam rip where I want my pockets to go. And if you were sewing a garment and knowing you wanted to do pockets, you can skip this step and actually add your pockets while you're sewing the side seams of your garment. Right sides facing together, pin and sew these pockets to your side seams. And you want to make sure you are then pinning the pockets together and sewing from the side seam all the way around the pockets. And then you'll just flip the pocket inside out and press it to make sure it's a clean finish. You can add this to any garment that has a side seam. Finally, I just used a rolled hem presser foot to sew the hem of my Betty dress, and you can find a tutorial for this on my channel linked right here. I like to finish off my dresses by adding a cute little tag. Now for Willow's dress for her birthday party, I'm using the Lois Wrap Onesie as my starting point, and I had to do a lot of tweaks to this to make it into a dress, but here I'm just using the back panel of the Lois Wrap Onesie, and I'm measuring out 3 times the width so that I can take that and smock it and do the pleats a lot smaller. So this is my first time smocking anything. My mom used to do this technique for all of my dresses growing up, and so I called on her a lot of times for help, and she actually came over and helped me walk through the process. So smocking is a technique of a series of pleating your fabric and then embroidering on top. The embroidery makes a design and also keeps the pleats together, and so it's such a cute and detailed way to add interest to a dress or a top or any type of clothing. This is my mom's pleater that she had when I was young, and so I'm just threading through all of these needles right here, and then I'm going to put my fabric on a dowel rod, and this will help me thread it through the pleater and make those tiny little pleats. So now I'm going to take out these threads and tie them together. And just a heads up, this isn't a tutorial on how to smock, it's just walking through my experience. So I found that if you use freezer paper and trace your pattern onto the freezer paper, it's a great way to iron it to your fabric, and then you just have to cut around. This makes it easy to keep the shape of your pattern, and so I'm just kind of like pulling out the pleats right here, and then I'm going to iron on my freezer paper and sew around the shape of the pattern. I moved the stitch length to a smaller length so that it would go through all of the pleats. And then after I'm done sewing the shape of the pattern, I just gently tear away the freezer paper, and it doesn't leave any residue or anything. It's just a really nice way to not have to pin things in place. So this is the part where I called upon my mom, and she came over and taught me how to do the stitching on top of the pleats, and this was so helpful because I had no idea where to start. And then I picked out these colors, but I think I'm just gonna do like a white and yellow or a white and like blue. Okay, I decided to use this like bluish seafoam color. So this is the plate that I'm following. It's from 1983. I'm kind of like meshing these two together. I think it's really cute and simple, and I thought it was kind of easy enough for me to start with. When you are smocking, what you do is you take embroidery thread, and instead of using the full thick thread like this, you take it apart into sections, and then what I'm doing is I'm taking each strand and pulling it apart. I would like to, in the future, experiment with doing the full embroidery thread. I do love that this like goes a long way. So one bunch of thread be enough for this whole thing, which is really nice because the embroidery thread is so cheap. But I think it would be cool to see what it looks like to have this like thicker thread on top of the pleats. And I think a good thing about most projects is knowing the basic and knowing like how things have always been done, but then also the good thing about it is being able to experiment. So I think that's just kind of the beauty of crafts and making things. Since I'm very new to smocking, I'm going to link another YouTube video below that you can watch if you're interested in learning more about smocking. Got a little rocky throughout this, and it's not perfect, but it's kind of cool how with smocking up close it might not be perfect, but kind of far away it kind of makes up for your imperfections, especially if you're a beginner. So I feel like that's encouraging, kind of nice that it's a little forgiving. I'm not going for perfect here. I'm loving the new practice of it all, and even just slowing down. This is like a really slow thing, so it's kind of nice to have something new to practice on. All these pleats right here are going to go away, and so I didn't want the pattern to be too short and the pleats to be too high. I like the look of it going a little lower. This has taken me, I did this over a series of like, I would say like 3 or 4 hours. It would probably go faster next time. The nice thing is you can do this watching a movie or a show, and something my mom said was she would do this in the car, so we would get on road trips and she would just do smocking on the road. And so I think it's cool that it's easy to move around. It's one of those projects that you can kind of take wherever you want, and also it's one of those things that just once you get into it you are able to relax and your mind gets to rest. And I really enjoy that about smocking. Something I've learned through learning how to smock is there's a difference between smocking and shirring. It's commonly referred to that this is smocking. So this picture shows something that looks like it's smocked, but it's actually called shirring. And that is, it's made by a machine, and what you do is you get elastic thread and put it on your bobby pin, and then your machine is stretching the fabric and making all these gathers. So it's actually like a really nice look. I love this look, but this is shirring. So sometimes you'll see tutorials for like a smocked dress, but it's not the same smocking. This is like an English style smocking. So what I'm doing right now is the pleating and then the embroidery on top. That is what real smocking is, but it's one of those things that people have gotten the wording mixed up, which is totally understandable. So after I finished my design of smocking, I just did the scary thing and I cut around the shape that I previously sewed and cut off the rest of the pleats, and then I had the rest of the pattern to sew together. And since the pattern is originally for a onesie, I had to do some tweaking to the sleeve shape, just make it a little smaller around my daughter's neck. And unfortunately, before the party started, I couldn't finish the back, but I just used a safety pin. But that is just how things work sometimes. So I followed the rest of the directions using the neckline, and I just folded it under, and a better way to do this would be to whip stitch, but I was also running out of time. Thanks so much for watching. I so enjoyed making these dresses for me and Willow. I would love if you liked and subscribed, because next week I'm sharing the DIYs I made for Willow's first birthday party. So I will see you next Monday.